What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets Haber. Happy Wednesday. We got a lot of sports coming up. This is a day where we're going to be busy. We've got obviously golf coming tomorrow. We've got baseball tomorrow. We've got the NBA, which is just at an all-time just cracked out situation in every way. Even on a 4-game slate, you can't be sure what's going to happen. But I would say that if for me, what I'm going to do, and everybody can do what they want, I still think there's edge in the NBA, especially because a lot of good players don't want to deal with these headaches. So this is my NBA little quick 2-second thing. I think that there is actually more edge to finding those things. And I think that if one thing we've been pretty good at is even when the slates make no sense and it seems crazy. And I mean, I'm having nights where I literally don't cash a single lineup and other nights where I'm cashing 80% of my lineups because we can find the right pivots and we know they're high risk and we have to just embrace it and go with it. Luke Kennard, for example, yesterday, locking him in was the right idea to do, just on the speculation alone of what was going to happen for the Clippers. Anyway, we're going to focus on each, but I do think that you should be a little bit careful with your bankroll for the NBA for right now. And I think that for MLB, I'm ready to get it going. Sheets.
So I would like to brag a little bit.
Okay.
It's going to be like a unique type of a DFS brag because I'm going to be bragging on something I did that did zero. So first of all, I played one idea last night. Actually, I did. I played one thing last night, and I also like to kind of brag. I think it's possible that in the bigger tournament on DraftKings, Bobby and I might have finished last and second to last. I'm not exactly sure.
I know I was up there, but I'm kind of pissed off.
We were close. We were close, but not that thing. My idea was, and I want to say worked. I always talk about you're supposed to analyze plays once everything settles and you know what the ownerships are and you know what plays you are relative to ownerships, right? And whatever the results are. So my idea was that when Beal was ruled out, and Monk also, right, that about 70% of all the money was going to be piling on that game. That it was going to be Westbrook. It was going to be, at the time, I thought it was going to be whoever the center was for Charlotte, Biyombo, and all the other logical guys, and with what's his name out, and with Neto out also, like it was going to go all those guys. And what we talked about at 12 o'clock, no, actually we didn't talk about 12 o'clock, and I was just confident that something was going to happen in that Clipper game. Okay, I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. So what I did was I played zero of the Washington-Charlotte game, okay?
Wow.
And pushed everything back, okay? And was just going to see what happened. I kept pushing back. The only two guys I played, even from the second game, was, believe it or not, I got Michael Porter Jr., thank you very much.
That's a beauty, yeah.
Yeah, and Jokic, who didn't do well, whatever. Yeah. And so then what happened was, then when the news came down that Paul George is out, I'm like, thank you very much. I actually played for a Clipper blowout, which of course didn't work, but I was playing for a Clipper blowout. So I had like Kennard locked in every lineup. Mm-hmm. And then I played Patterson, Coffee from the Clippers, whatever it is. And I had basically everybody, and then I had Trey and all these guys in this other game. Dude, Luke Kennard was like only like 27% owned or something like that. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he should have been 100. Okay. I literally didn't even know what his price was when I'm like, okay, he's doing okay. He's got 13. Why does he have a flame? Like, wait, he was really only 3,700, right? Or whatever he was.
34, yeah.
And then like these other guys, like Trey and like all these other guys were like 0% own these guys because all of the ownership went, like I said, to the Charlotte game. Right. And there was nothing left for Luke Kennard. I mean, like there was like nothing left for any of these guys. So turns out, like, nobody really did anything, and it didn't work out, and there was no blowout, and they actually lost the game. But I was very, very happy with the way the ownership shook down, and I would do that in a shot. Yeah, probably 70% chance that Westbrook gets there, and probably a 70% chance that all that other stuff gets there. But 30% of the time, it might not.
No, you're right. And by the way, and well, I think that might have been overkill on, and maybe that, like I had a couple just Westbrook and Graham lineups, which looked like I was going to be in business, but I made a few mistakes later on. But I like that thinking. I mean, I think it made.
I thought I was playing both blowouts. I thought that Charlotte was going to blow Washington out. I thought that with Beal out Westbrook on a back-to-back. They were just kind of tanking early. And if they weren't having a good game, they'd rest Westbrook in the second half or something like that. It just turns out I was wrong about that. Okay, but that's going to happen sometimes.
Sure.
Like a lot of the time. But again, so when it comes to analyzing results, don't just say, "Oh my God, I can't believe this guy. I played Giannis and he busted." You know what I mean? Like you got to like the other day, like you did really really well in the whatever. I was in the stuff. I was kind of content with of having Giannis at 8%. Like even though he played like a 2% guy. It's like
right.
I was kind of content with that. So
No, I agree about the day before. I mean, I talked about it on air. What we were talking about, it was getting a guy like Sabonis in that kind of a spot when no one's going to do anything was the key to a lot of those lineups. And by the way, it was in addition to Harden and Westbrook, the chalky guys who were the spend up. So you really got a little bit. I mean, nobody else had that combination hardly. It was very very rare.
So in an 11 games, was it? Let me almost share my screen as we unseamlessly transition into today's slate. But wait, where'd it go? Share. In 11 game slate, however long this is, it seems to have reduced itself a little bit, you know, with the value that opened up late last night. So we'll see how chalky this actually becomes and where pivots can emerge. But we'll see that there are much fewer games than it would have you believe, I think.
Right. I kind of agree with that. I think that the only thing I'd say is that it's not just the trade deadline. It's not just COVID. This is the NBA in the middle part where it's really, some teams are sort of, and it's also weird because they have the play-in game now. So some teams are sort of semi-tanking, but sort of have a chance at the playoffs and kind of want it. So it's a very strange time to try and pick up motivations. You know, OKC, even though they keep somehow playing competitive and winning games, for example, they just flat out sat out their starters in the fourth quarter a couple games ago because they were too close in the game, and they still ended up winning one of those games. Or I think that particular game. But it's important to try and remember that stuff, and let's not get lost completely in the projections because they're going to be helpful, but they're not going to be entirely accurate, and there's a lot of speculation going on. So with that said, let's go game by game and see what we can figure out, because I do think there's edge. They have a fun $100 you can multi-enter on DraftKings that I'm into today, and I'm going to play probably 15 entries. There's the you know, all the normal stuff, and it's just like the last night, I feel like for me, where I can just sort of play basketball unobstructed from any other sport, because as you know, baseball's every day. It's a million games, and it's something that we're going to want to be involved in. It's also a lot less stressful, to be honest. So let's get into it, Sheets. Let's talk about Portland and Detroit.
So I guess I'll start. So on Detroit, like one of the only good things I did the other day was get this right. Was get Hamidou Diallo right. When we were just talking about.
By the way, that was awesome at the time because most projection systems did not love him.
Yeah, I mean, reason this was the type of minutes I was hoping for him, and it was like literally one of the only things I did right that day. But in any case, so I now unfortunately the rest of the universe is going to be on it. I believe. So yeah, he's fine. I mean, I think my logic stays the same. I think that he's one of the guys that's going to get minutes, and he's 4,600, and I also feel as though he's going to be probably pretty chalky. But we'll look at that. The other guys from Detroit, one of the guys you got, I think you nailed pretty good, was Sadiq Bey last time. I forgot. But I think that he's a guy that's going to keep playing, and I think that I think those are the two guys that I would say count on. But those are the guys I think are going to try to play. Jeremy Grant, I guess fine, but I just feel as though it's just other plays, but he's okay. I think what's interesting, I guess, is Portland. I mean, you have CJ McCollum back, and you have even Nurkic back a little bit, right? And you have Norman Powell coming in there, and as a result, you know, Damian Lillard's usage is certainly not going to be what it was 2 weeks ago. But I'm staring at these ownership projections, and I'm like, wow. Maybe I got to respect a little. And this is not the type of game you usually want to play Dame, right? Like usually the West Coast game and the West Coast team at 10:30 at night, like all the way at the end, playing Sacramento, playing somebody, whatever it is, playing like on the road against Detroit in the 7 o'clocker. It doesn't feel like where you usually play Lillard, but it's still Lillard, right? And it's still 5% Lillard. I'm probably gonna have him in there a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I actually think like the one thing I'll say going forward is that I don't see CJ McCollum's early season numbers were not a joke, and he's proving it more and more even lately. And he was doing it with Nurkic still in the lineup, and Nurkic is back but still playing 24 or less minutes. I honestly think if this was another slate, you could actually make the exact same argument you just made for Lillard for Nurkic, and maybe
For Nurkic or McCollum?
I'm sorry, from McCollum, excuse me.
Okay.
I just think that it's not just like it doesn't take an outlier. He was 1 for 7 from threes in his last game. He made half of his other shots or his overall shots, but he had 49 fantasy points. Sure, he had 2 steals and 3 blocks, but that's what'll happen sometimes, especially against the Detroit team. Like you're going to have a guy who's scrappy out there, and he's always going to do 2 of the 3 things: rebound, score, and assist. And if he does all 3, you're going to get 45 to 55 fantasy points. Now, is that enough? Maybe not. But I agree with all the points on Lillard. I'm a little bit. The problem with Lillard is also we kind of want him when they feel threatened. You know what I mean? He's another one of those guys who his clutch numbers this season. For those of you who haven't looked those up, he is one of the all-time great clutch seasons in the history of sports. It's really, really incredible stuff. I mean, you're talking about a guy shooting like 65% from 3 in the last minute of games or something, and a lot of them from 30 feet.
Most of them when they were down 9.
Yeah, 50% of them. But look, at the same time, they've won a bunch of games, and they did it without a lot of their good players. So I love the idea of playing a tiny bit. I mean, look, if I'm paying 150, I would have 5 to 10% McCollum and 10 to 15% Lillard. I just think that there's enough upside for them. And maybe I change my mind as we go through this. I'm extremely concerned about the Detroit guys who stand out. I don't
Saben Lee and Diallo, you mean?
Yeah, I think that these rotations have been so fluky.
Okay.
And I'm just double checking. The only thing is they did win that game. This is the other. I would be totally like willing to completely fade it, but they won that game, and they don't need to worry about losing too many games because they've already lost enough. So they can try to win, but it's just a little sketchy that Josh Jackson, who was supposed to play 32 minutes in the last game and was a DNP CD, and Diallo, who was supposed to play 15 minutes, played 27. And this is not like the first time this happened. This happens basically every other day. Plumlee goes through weeks where he plays 20 minutes, and then the next thing you know, he's playing 32 minutes a game. It's just they're all over the place. The only guys I feel secure to get minutes are Jeremy Grant and Sadiq Bey.
Oh, okay.
Everybody else is completely up in the air to me. I mean, they're even playing Frank Jackson some minutes. So look, we'll get the starting lineup before the game starts. I think that will be a telling sign. If you see Diallo in the starting lineup, that you can see that as a sign that, hey, we should probably be playing Diallo. But as of right now, I would be inclined to go underweight on he and Saben Lee. Because the one thing I'll say about Saben Lee, as well as he played the other night, he played well. He made both of his threes. He shot, 7 of 12 from the floor. He had 5 assists. He had a steal and a block. And he got there nicely, 33 fantasy points. But he played 26 minutes against, and this is another good matchup, but this is also going to be tough for him defensively. Maybe the coach will shift things around and play Frank Jackson or throw Josh Jackson out there even for defense, or maybe Diallo on Lillard and McCollum because it's a tough matchup. Just if there's going to be this much chalk in the early game, especially, let's try to be underweight on it just as a principle. But again, if Diallo is starting, I'm not saying I'm not playing Diallo and Saben Lee. I'm just saying I'm probably going to end up being under the field. And it's a lot of it has to do with start time too. And I definitely am not going to be into the Plumlee thing. I understand there's a ceiling there, but right now I have no interest in Plumlee. Those are the 3 guys who show up for me.
One of the things, again, it's like probably the worst day to waste time, but I want to waste 30 seconds anyway. Something basketball related you guys keep an eye on. If you ever like afraid to play McCollum, for example, with Lillard there, something that I've noticed like many times is that when and this is why Lillard's such a freaking awesome leader. You know what I mean? When McCollum is feeling it and making shots, Lillard has no problem letting him continue to do it. Okay, he'll literally just go one side of the court and throw it over and like wave him to like take it. You know what I mean? Yep. And those types of like kind of what I call self-correlating players like are really big for winning GPPs because he's not like one of those selfish. As Lillard's not one of those selfish guys. Okay, you got yours now. I'm getting mine because I'm Damian Lillard. You know what I mean? Right. He's like psyched whenever like we've seen over the last couple of years like McCollum with these like 45 real life point games. Yep. where Lillard just says, tonight's you, baby. You go take it. Yep. And when you want to win a GPP, that's exactly what you want.
Yep, and he's incredible at using himself as a threat. And I just want to point out that since McCollum has been back, while the usage between the two of them is about the same, well, it's actually it's actually about the exact same. I'm looking at it right now. It's hard to, it's actually trying to add it up, but anyway, the weird part is that Lillard's games are always right around 30% usage with McCollum in there. McCollum has games in the 25 and the 40-ish% range. That makes me feel like McCollum might even be a better tournament play going forward in certain spots. I don't know about tonight, but I think it's an important point to make. And I like what you said about Lillard. It's completely true. Also, they're good buddies and play good basketball together. By the way, and I'm not wasting any more time after this, I'm just going to say, let's go Bruins. We did it. I cannot believe this team made the Final Four of all teams. I'm totally shocked, but we're thrilled.
I've never seen a team that's like a 12 seed so hated. That's like in Final Four.
UCLA?
Yeah.
Not in my parts. I mean, West.
Not in your parts. I'm saying in general. I can't believe this. They were so lucky. They were this. I guess UCLA's got that cachet.
They're the only 11 seed to ever beat a 1 and a 2.
I know.
I mean, what are you supposed to do? You beat the 1 and the 2.
Right.
All right. And they won the play-in game too against
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Best non-team in there, whatever. Anyway, yep. They're just owning the state of Michigan. All right, on to Miami and Indy. Sheets, this is one of those spots where, boy, I feel like we should have a lot of interest in two guys here on Miami's side. And is this the slate we're going to want to invest in it? I think it is. I actually think that that I would be surprised if one of Butler or Bam doesn't score around 50 plus. Is that going to be enough? Probably a good enough score for you to have even on this slate. So I have a lot of interest in both those guys. I'm looking at right now, I would say somewhere in the 15 to 25%, so probably around 20% of each. And I think people will be interested in them too, but I think that'll be above the field. That's sort of how I'm trying to approach this slate, almost like a mass entering slate. So I have interest in both these guys. What do you think?
So I'm going to share this with you guys. I wasn't planning on it, but I'm going to do this now. I'm going to start putting this up on our site that we're looking on. So this is like the way I visualize my grid, and it's changed over the course of the day. So when I rank these guys kind of by like my own kind of value scores here, like I see like Harden like significantly above like everybody else. So him, I don't really worry about too much of the ownership. And then I see like a lot of these guys is kind of like similarly priced. So what I like to do is I'd like to find like the first kind of lower owned guy that fits this. And the first one right there is Jimmy Butler. Mm-hmm. And so that was like literally the first thing I was going to say when we got to the slate was, okay, I got a couple of guys that I want. And then like really close behind is Bam actually. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I look, maybe it's not the sexiest game in the world, right? Like you said, mm-hmm. But like I said, man, Butler 8,800, pretty almost disrespectful, right? So I completely agree with you completely. I like both of them. I don't know if I could play them both, but why not?
Well, to stay on brand, for me, I actually think that I just want to point out I like them both, and but just in order of taking a stance early in the day, I know it's hard to do. Assuming Kendrick Nunn plays, especially just so there's another guard out there, I just want to point out. I've said it 100 times in the show. Big men have absolutely destroyed this Indy front line, and it's counterintuitive because Miles Turner is a great defender and Sabonis is a big body who plays good fundamentally. But Bam being a little bit cheaper, obviously a tougher because he's only center eligible and all that stuff. But I would give a little bit of an edge to Bam in this particular matchup. But I think they both rate to be similarly really good plays. Sorry, Sheets.
Yeah, no, I would you. But what I was asking is, would you play them together?
No, I think we're reaching then because it's just too big a slate. But it like they both could get there. But if they get there both even with 45 or something like that, it's probably not going to be enough with that much money allocated on a slate like this.
Okay, fair enough. You like anybody on the Indiana side or no?
Brogdon, again, mass multi-entering a 5 to 10%. Other than that, unless we hear McDermott and Lamb are out, they're both questionable. Then we can talk. I mean, I'll tell you what, like, I don't know how they find any minute, they're going to find minutes for him. But if both those guys are out, I will just say that they've been struggling. They're going to shake things up. And Edmund Sumner would get a lot of run, I think, if those two guys are out and he's 3,200. I don't think we need to do that today. I'm just throwing it out there. And Miles Turner is always going to be intriguing at this price. He actually plays really well against these kinds of teams sometimes. Like it's strange, again, counterintuitive. but against the better bigs, he seems to like almost like find another level of himself. But I think on this slate, we just move on.
So let's do that.
All right. Here's where it's going to get interesting.
All right. See, I'm more interested in fading this whole thing than playing it. So I guess you're referring to Boston, right?
Yes.
So I'll tell you what I feel. I feel as though is that if Jaylen Brown is in, the whole team is kind of a trivial fade for me. The only person I would play is maybe Jaylen Brown. If he's out, maybe I have too much respect for this situation than other. I think that Fournier is going to eat usage out of people. I mean, I do. He's a shooter. He likes to shoot. He likes to do whatever. And I don't think it's going to be so easy that if Brown is out, that all these other guys, some Celtics, are such locks. And if those guys get ownership as a result, I'll probably be more inclined to fade it than to jump on it if they get ownership. The guy who seems to be the easiest play from Boston every game is the center, right? Is Robert Williams. And Dallas, as we've seen, it doesn't really provide a lot of resistance to bigs in general. So he'd be my favorite guy from Boston is Robert Williams. And on the Dallas side, it's just Luka or nothing. And for me, I don't know. I think I think I'd rather play Harden. And more to the point, I'd rather play Harden and somebody like Butler, right? And save some money than play Harden and Luka. I don't know if Luka's going to get there for me, but we'll see.
So okay, I think this matchup is really interesting. And look, this may be too advanced for 11-game slate, but I think it's really important. If Jaylen Brown plays, they have someone who can mark Luka. And I'm saying that Marcus Smart can try, but that man Luka, if his size is no joke, and he can beat up anybody inside. Also, he's coming off of like a series of duds, and I'm going to say my favorite play in this game is, I'm going back to it. You know how I like to ride this guy. Porzingis is absolutely out of control right now. He was going to put up another 60 plus the other night easily. I think he had 40 at halftime, and they just ran him out of the building. He's got he's in his last 3 games, 53, 62, 45. He's pretty much unguardable by any measure, but especially against Boston, like as Tatum's a good defender, like Porzingis is 7-3. It doesn't matter. When he gets it going, you're not going to stop this guy. And by the way, in these games, he's shooting 30% from 3-point range. It's not like he's making a bunch of threes and getting lucky. This is a high usage guy who's, 2 out of the last 3 games, he's had a usage of over 35%, actually surpassing Luka in 2 of those games. And in the last game, he still put up 45 anyway. And, he's also got the steal block upside where you could end up with like a combined 6-7 of them. So I love him on both sides. I think he's really underpriced in my opinion, because I think you're looking at a guy who's, if this game is close, who's on that trajectory where he goes, remember like last year, he had like the 7 50-point games in a row or something. When he gets in these zones, that's what happens. So I think we really want to attack a low-owned Kristaps. And I honestly think Luka's so low-owned, I might have to just set aside a bunch of my lineups. And yeah, it could even out between the 2 of them and all that stuff and not playing them together, obviously. But this is my first spot where I see a way of getting different, and I'm going to absolutely swallow it up. And I think they're both, considering what their upside is, underpriced. I mean, to have Luka, like, I've looked at a couple different ceiling charts lately that someone turned me on to, and I'll tell you about those later. But Luka is basically, his ceiling on all DFS projection sites is like 15 points too low, and Porzingis is about 10 points too low. So I love both of these guys, and I don't care that there's a reputation of Boston and having a good defense. Kemba Walker's on the court, and Robert Williams, who's still trying to figure it out, is on the court. And then if I am playing one, and not that I need a run back of any kind, but I actually think that, let's just talk real quickly about this, because I like Robert Williams, but isn't it kind of odd that, we know we're going to want to play centers today, and obviously we like guards too, but Kemba Walker versus Robert Williams in terms of realistic ceilings. Kemba Walker has put up 50 plus in a game, and will do it other times. He's also going to play all the minutes. And no, it's been a little while for him. We've seen guards attack a little bit lately against Dallas, and mostly guys who can shoot from the outside. So I'm just throwing it out there that I have a little bit of interest in Kemba, but I agree with you that Robert Williams is the natural best play. I'm just thinking of Kemba as the long shot play. And then, of course, look, if these guys are out again, we are going to go back to Tatum a little bit. I mean, if Brown is, Tatum is, I mean, his usage, the way they rely on him, and most importantly, even more than the usage at 30%, are the shots. He's just getting up too many shots to not have a chance at 50 to 70 fantasy points. So I actually do have mild interest in this game, but if everybody plays, it's mostly just going to fall on Robert Williams with a little, maybe a 7 to 10%, or maybe 10%, or maybe a little higher on Kemba.
So I wanted to say that, before we left this game, is that Robert Williams. My point was just that he would be the one that's like kind of the constant.
Yeah.
He rates is like my 8th favorite center. I'm probably not going to play him.
Right.
But I was just saying that, like, with all those other guys shifting back and forth and all these wings and stuff, the only guy that's been kind of consistent in there, you know what I mean, is Robert Williams. Okay, you want to move on?
Move on. This is the weirdest, just the weirdest game. All right, Sheets, why don't you start it off?
Well, I mean, it seems rather straightforward on the Houston side. It's very dependent on who plays. You know what I mean? I think it's pretty straightforward in a way. The main guys, that being Wall, the way basically I'm thinking about it is Wall, Kevin Porter Jr. and what's his name, and Christian Wood. So if Christian Wood is out, I think that both of those guys are really strong plays. I think that if one of those 3 are out, then the other 2 are really, really strong plays. And I think if 2 of those, if somehow Wall and Christian Wood are out, then Kevin Porter Jr. is like a lock. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I'm at with Houston. I don't think that on this size of a slate, I'm going to be doing some Jason Tating and like all those other Houston guys. And then for me on Brooklyn, it's, the only thing that's going to stop Harden from getting as many points as he wants is game script. I feel.
Yeah.
And even so, I mean, he still might get what he needs. So I think that, I don't know. He seems to me to be the easiest play on the board. But the funny thing is, the more that I think about it, the more maybe you're right. I mean, not that I still think Harden's a better play. Maybe Luka's closer than I at first thought. I'm just kind of like thinking about different game script issues and stuff. And like when I think of like Harden and Giannis, like they have much bigger game script issues than Luka does. I mean, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna revisit my not anti-Luka stance, but I think I'm gonna make Luka closer to Harden. But Harden is certainly a good play.
Yeah, Harden. I mean, look, even if the game blows out, he's probably still getting you 60 plus. I wouldn't worry about him getting you there. But look, we have an 11 game slate. We can get greedy and try and find every extra bit we can find. You know what I mean? If he gets 60 fantasy points in 3 quarters and we get 75 from Luka because the game's tight down the stretch in an important game that I believe is nationally televised, that definitely has a little bit of appeal to me. So I actually would put that I have the same interest of ownership in Luka and Harden, which is great because Harden is probably at this point of the day projected to be about 1,000,000% owned, and Luka is projected to be about 10% owned, which means Luka will probably end up he usually ends up around 5% in those spots, and Harden usually ends up around 75% in those spots. So that's an immediate way we can get different on this slate. Look, we can play a guy who never gets there in John Wall if we want to play a game stack here. He's questionable, by the way, and Christian Wood, we don't know what's going to happen there. Honestly, if Christian Wood plays, I have a lot more interest in Christian Wood than I do in John Wall. Or not a lot more. I have a little more interest in the center is the reason why I don't have a lot more.
And of course, I forgot. I mean, you're going to probably talk about it, but I did forget. We got to remember Kelly Olynyk if Wood is out also.
Kelly Olynyk is gone, right? Sorry, Kelly. Wait, say that. Sorry,
Kelly Olynyk if Wood is
Kelly
out.
Olynyk is in. Oh, he's not out, is he?
No, I'm saying you have to play Kelly Olynyk if Wood is out.
If Wood is out, I'm sorry. Yes. I do think Wood is going to play. I think Wood is projected to play. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like John Wall, he sat out some of the tougher matchups so far this year, and he's played against a lot of the softer teams. I mean, look at their board and versus who they've actually played. This seems like a spot you'd want to sit John Wall out. Now, there might be the other side where you go, okay, John Wall wants to play against the guys who are the best and all that stuff, and maybe he wants to prove he's still up there. That motivation would make me have some interest if he does play, but I'm questioning whether or not he even plays. And I totally agree, Kevin Porter, if they don't play. I'll go a step further with this. I think it's Kevin Porter if they do play a little bit. Kevin Porter is going to get every kind of run if Wall and Wood play. So he'll get the blowout run. The weird part is if those guys are both out, he probably doesn't get the blowout run because then he becomes their number one option. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a strange situation, but I do like Kevin Porter and I love him in this environment. And the guy who like this is not going to be a popular, I don't think we can do it. I think they just made his price too high. I was hoping he was still under 4K on DraftKings on FanDuel, but just gonna say Daniel House and Jashawn Tate are two guys who are continually underprojected. By the way, they are going to play DJ Augustine, Sterling Brown, and Avery Bradley minutes tonight. So it's a deeper Houston team than what we've seen so far. But all those guys, all the Houston guys who is their bench now, the reason I say this about Porter, he should get the extra run, maybe even if they don't play, because these other guys are mostly, I mean, Olynyk, Bradley, and DJ Augustine, these guys are 100 years old, you know? And then on the Brooklyn side, I really think we're only talking about Harden. And the only other thing I would say about them is, you know, look, it's just that Kyrie can break a slate anytime he wants. And there's no better matchup in all of basketball. So if you're playing 150, play 5 to 10% Kyrie.
I had a couple more comments. One, just kind of like, what odds were we getting at halftime or at the end of the first quarter the other day that Harden would outscore Kyrie by like 25 points?
No, but you know what? Honestly, I think they're about right because what they do in their rotations. I mean, partly Kyrie goes crazy hot, and then it will just not disappear, but they'll let Harden do this thing. Yeah. And Kyrie's, you know what he's done? We should give him credit for one thing. He's been the best shooting guard in the NBA for this season, in my opinion, when he's played.
The other thing I would say is, it's possible, by the way, that even if Christian Wood plays, that Kelly Olynyk is a good play anyway.
So I think you really need to then that in that lineup, you're going to have to play Harden, in my opinion, because if we're thinking about fading Harden at all, you just have to that would have to be a Harden lineup because then you're playing for them to be competitive and Olynyk to get run down the stretch. He's not going to play in blowouts. He's not going to play 33 minutes unless the game is close. So that's the only thing I'd say. But I mean, just from a matchup and a skill standpoint, I totally agree. I just think I don't know if the minutes will be there, but also you know what Sheets we could see. We could see what would become an interesting problem is if Olynyk started alongside Christian Wood in this matchup, which is counterintuitive because the way Brooklyn plays smaller or can play smaller, but it actually might be something that they would try and do things a little different. Silas is kind of creative. So just worth thinking about. And the one other guy who stands out for blowout run potentially is Nicholas Claxton until they get, all their 100 big men that they take off the wire. And I just think Nicholas Claxton in 20 plus minutes, which I think he'll get tonight if they blow him out, is always exciting against a team like Houston that just can't protect the rim and can't rebound. So probably not going to do it on this slate though.
All right. So Utah against Memphis. You have Donovan Mitchell that was ruled out yesterday, which is at least nice they ruled him out yesterday and not 10 minutes before game time. So what that does, that opens up all the normal suspects that you would imagine would open up on Utah. And they rate to be really, really strong values, and they rate to be extremely chalky. So you have to figure out what you want to do with that. So I guess in order, I mean, as for me, well, I mean, it depends how much you want to spend in what position, but there's Conley, Clarkson, Rudy Gobert. I am not into the Ingles as much as other people are in general.
Right.
And maybe that's a mistake, but that's just kind of where I'm at. So I like Conley, Clarkson, and Gobert the best. Followed by Ingles. And then, if the import of Mitchell being out also extends down to the fact that it makes the game closer. So it makes stacking and playing someone like Morant or Valanciunas a little better. And here's the issue. Well, I'll be able to get over the issue because he did score 50. I think he had 50 fantasy points against them before. It seems that it's an atrocious spot for Ja because like he scores so much like inside the paint that to try to bring it in with Gobert standard, it seems like it wouldn't work. But in the last game, I think he'd work somehow. Yeah. So I think that if you play these Utah guys, I certainly think that it's a decent idea to run it back with Ja and just eat the matchup problem. He's only 7,200, and I think on FanDuel he's under 7K. We'll get to that. The Valanciunas thing doesn't really do it for me, again, because so much for me of his upside comes from those like 20 rebound games and stuff like that. And this is just not, you just don't get 20 rebounds against Gobert. You just don't do it. So for me, and I don't know if I want to go for like Dylan Brooks's and stuff like that. So I don't know how much stacking I'll do, but I guess Moran it's going to be a scary one to play. But I think if you do play these Utah guys, I think you probably want to play Moran.
So I have a pretty strong take on this game. Look, it couldn't have come at more of a perfect storm time for Mike Conley. You have him going back to Memphis, where he's like the most beloved player in the history of sports because that's his home place, and Donovan Mitchell is out. I would just say beware with these numbers. We had other games where Mitchell was out this year. We had other games where Mitchell and Ingles, Mitchell and Conley were even out for a couple games. There was, Mitchell and Clarkson. Yeah, Conley, not Clarkson. The numbers early in the day, I think, first of all these projections will come down. I don't buy these. I don't buy the Joe Ingles median is 32 here. I just don't buy it. I'm not saying he can't score more than 32. I'm just saying shouldn't be his median score here. I do think Mike Conley is who you want to side with. I think the major chalk is going to be Jordan Clarkson, and I think you want to side with Mike Conley. That's my personal take. I think Clarkson's got upside, but to be really high owned, Jordan Clarkson is not the Jordan Clarkson we want in general. So basically the way I've got it written out in a script right now is Conley like at 45%, and Clarkson at like 15%. Who I see projections out there of him at 35 and 55. So
yeah,
51. Excuse me. And then I with Ingles and I have some interest in Royce O'Neal. Great game environment for him. Really cheap. Sort of if other value opens up, he's like the second tier level. 4,200. And I love the position eligibility. So but I would have him probably like somewhere around 14%, 15%. I have Joe Ingles written in as 10%, and it's really just going to be a part of a game stack, which I'll get into on the other side in a minute. The guy who I do like better from this other side is, and he's been terrible. You're just going to have to close your eyes and play him. Bogdanovich is so cheap. I think that against a team like Memphis at this pace, you're just playing we hope he gets hot game and he can go out there and get us 40 fantasy points because he makes 7 threes. And that is on the table. I mean, he's going to get more shots. I'm not saying he's going to make 7 threes, but I like his upside for tournaments. And I like, it's interesting that people like Gobert and that he's projecting so well. I don't see this as being like the ideal kind of matchup for him, but he can smash in any, and he's been really good lately, and he can smash in any matchup. I just don't think I'm going to probably want to play him as my center. So I've got him, I'm basically below the field on everybody except for Bogdanovich and Conley, which is very unlike me. I'm usually a Clarkson guy, but back in Memphis, I can't shake the narrative and the fact that the usage is going to be there. I also want to point out that even though Conley in the last time they played Memphis, now this was playing Memphis at home, so which is very different than going back to Memphis where he's beloved, where I believe they actually have fans in the arena, some fans tonight. I'm not 100% sure on that one. He shot 2 for 13 in the last game, but had the highest usage he's had of any second highest usage he had of any game in the last 20. And that was just playing the same team. Now, maybe that's just coincidence, but who cares? It's him playing this team again, so it can't be that big a coincidence. Anyway, long story short, I am going to play Ja Morant as a run back. Sheets, what you said was exactly right, and we talked about this last time. And look, you saw it in the next game against Utah. Well, they got blown out in that game on the back-to-back. But then I think they believe they won the first one, didn't they? I got to double check that. And it was all Morant and down the stretch. And one thing about playing Ja Morant, you don't generally want to look at him in the first quarter. He is a true point guard in the sense that he tries to get other people involved. And when the game feels that it's being threatened, he completely takes over. I call him mini Westbrook for a reason. So I love Ja Morant actually to still, and by the way, about even with Gobert in the middle, other guys will shy away from attacking the basket. While it might not always be advised, Morant is the exact opposite type of mentality. He thinks, okay, and the same thing with Westbrook. What do we say about Westbrook every year, Sheets? His best games are against Utah. So the other guy who stands out because of the game environment, which I guess every game is this game environment, but Utah's been playing a little faster too. I'm waiting on this one. Maybe it's wrong. He's actually been good lately, but on a big slate, maybe you don't need him. But I just think Brandon Clark could fit in this particular matchup. I don't have any long elaborating anything big to say about it. He's played well in these matchups against Utah so far. The minutes haven't really been there. He did play a little bit more against Houston the other night, but that was a blowout. Oh no, it wasn't a blowout. That was a close one. I guess I would say if Grayson Allen is out, Brandon Clark would become extremely interesting. And by the way, so would Dylan Brooks and Kyle Anderson. But we need to know about Grayson Allen because that'll open up a lot of minutes and a lot of shots. One other long shot guy. These are all 5 to 10 percenters, but I need to mention them. D'Anthony Melton is the ultimate all the time tournament play. Probably not an 11-game slate, but the guy can absolutely explode. And the Jaws route to failure is often Melton's route to success. So he's one of those guys who once out of every 8 games puts up like a 35 or a 40. I just throwing him out there as a 5%er early in the day.
Want to move on?
Yep.
So Toronto OKC, I feel as though Lowry is really, really mispriced, but I shouldn't say mispriced. I mean, he's like cheap, you know what I mean? Like they've, you know, he's had some bum games. He's been hurt, you know, he's just getting old a little bit, you know what I mean? And they only played like very few minutes in his last game, but he's still only.
He got killed.
Yeah, right. So he's pretty cheap here. He's like almost free on FanDuel. So I like him. I like Fred VanVleet a little bit on DraftKings as well. And I like Siakam. I do like these Toronto guys. OKC, I don't have any interest in. I didn't get to anybody on OKC. So for me,
it'd be taking place for OKC first, you know.
Except for what's his face? The one guy whose rating is like a value is the what do you say, Svi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fine, I suppose.
It's not the most fun value. Yeah, go ahead.
It's fine. Why is Maladon out or something?
Maladon's in. Svi started the last game after. Remember at the very end of our show we were talking and I said, well, Svi starting does change things a little bit, but I want to point out, and people are like, oh yeah, he got there. So he got there and played only 27 minutes. He shot 2 of 3 from 3-point range and 7 for 10 overall from the floor and put up 21 fantasy.
He got there. He didn't do anything. I'm not interested.
That's my point. I'm with you. We're on the same page. I'm just making a different way of pointing it out.
Pass.
The only reason you play him is you get to buy yourself an extra hour to look out for later value.
You're gonna gets myself to bust with Giannis again, which I don't feel like doing. I don't think I'm gonna do that, but I like Toronto guys.
So I like the Toronto guys. I'm gonna throw out Ty Jerome as I think a really good play.
There you go.
I thought he was gonna crush for me the other night. He had 21 or 22 at halftime on FanDuel at 1% ownership at 4,100. I was like, oh, let's go. And did only put a 5 in the second half. Still ended up with a nice game. But Ty Jerome is pretty involved without actually even when he's on the court, but without Shea especially. So Ty Jerome is the guy who I would probably want to be ahead of the field on for sure, probably in the 15 to 20% range. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out. This is early morning stuff, guys. This is how I do my first stuff. I think Maladon is fine to go right back to, especially in this matchup. But the guy who I really want to play a ton of after maybe people feel like he let him down, and I know it's hard at center, and I know that there's the downside, and I know all this stuff, I will go right back to Moses Brown, absolutely no problem. And honestly, you're going to have a hard time not getting me to play Poku unless he's 5,500 at 15 to 20% on almost any slate. The ceiling is there. He's consistently been like, even when he's not shooting well and not playing all that well, maybe he's not getting there by a bunch, but at 5,100, 30 plus fantasy points, even on a big slate, is still somebody who can, you say, okay, he won't win you a tournament, but he's got 50 fantasy point upside. And against Toronto, Toronto has basically been playing defense like me and you and I don't know, three other guys are in our age range against anybody. They look like they're just not moving on defense. They seem to try on offense, but not on defense. So I'm into all these guys again. I like all of them. And I'm just putting Moses Brown and Poku at the top, along with Ty Jerome, followed by Maladon, Roby, and then look, Svi if you're doing a full-on game stack, which I think is totally viable, but that would be the only way you play Svi. And the Toronto guys all stand out to me. So I've got to figure out a way of prioritizing. That's always going to go to Van Vliet for me when they're this closely priced. 7 for 20 in the last game, pretty easy to see why he failed. And also they got blown out. So his 38 minutes turned into 33. These guys are all going to play 36 to 40 minutes. They're going to make a playoff push now that they have Kyle Lowry. I can't imagine they'll play as poorly as they did against Detroit the other night. There is, honestly, it feels weird to say it, but there's blowout risk for Toronto. And actually, this is not that weird to say. They're actually favored by 8. But that's the one thing that really does sort of worry me. And you want a really good long shot play for a giant field tournament, and it's Chris Boucher, without a doubt. He fits the blowout angle. He fits the upside. Even if he can play separate from the blowout. He could end up at the 5. Even Anunoby, who no one ever really likes to click that button. I just want to point out with the way it's constructed and without Norman Powell, this is not the same OG Anunoby that we're used to. We're getting Anunoby shooting the ball in the teens every game, pretty much. We're getting, he's always been a good rebounder, good shot blocker, gets a lot of steals. But his usage has been, some low 20s to mid 20s. Like, that's huge for him. He might be taking that next leap a little bit. And then obviously Siakam. So I'll take this game to be the game to be overweight on. I'm not as interested in Gary Trent personally. I don't see that as being something I want to do, but the minutes are going to be there. He's probably the least interesting one to me. But I really like this game as a potential game stack and hope it stays close.
Yeah, that's way more than I thought we were going to deal with this game. I would just
I don't think I'm going to be alone in this, by the way. I think there's going to be ownership in this game. I think you're going
to see. To respond, I would say that if I had to rank the OKC guys that you mentioned,
yeah, go ahead.
Obviously Svi looks like a good value, but I prefer, I think, Poku first, and then maybe Roby over Moses Brown. But I think they're all okay.
I just think Moses Brown, I can't resist that ceiling at no ownership.
Yeah, the Ty Jerome, I think, is a great play if Svi becomes really popular.
Yeah, I actually love the Ty Jerome. I just think he's like, you're probably not, going out there. You're not playing him to try and cram him in your lineups. But as part of a game stack and as a guy who can get you 30 fantasy points, he's at 4,500. He certainly makes some sense.
Right. So New York, Minnesota.
Yep.
This is revenge.
Derrick Rose revenge time.
Well, I was thinking Tibbs revenge.
Why not? Let's blow the doors off of them, but use Derrick Rose, who was also there. But yeah, Derrick Rose doesn't have to be vengeful towards them. So I agree with you. That's actually a good point, by the way, Sheets. So what does that mean? We get the starters they play 46 minutes instead of 44?
Yeah. So with that said, I like 2 guys in this game, and I showed you that kind of the grid before, and 2 guys that rate to be on the lower owned side of the board, and are both from this game, and they're on opposite sides, and I don't know if people are going to pay for them. Well, I like Cat and I like Randall. I like both those guys. I don't think I like much else from the Minnesota side. Again, I still feel as though I don't say I'm right, but I still fear playing either Edwards or Beasley with the other one in there. And we did well with the power forward the other day, though. The who was it? The McDaniels?
Yeah, that came through huge.
Yeah, he did great.
I showed you some of my DraftKings stuff, but I won a tournament on FanDuel it was like I think it was the 3 max entry or whatever. It was only for like $1,500 or something.
He did great.
But he was on that lineup, and that was beautiful.
But on the Knicks side, I mean, you could play. You could play the wait and see with the guards thing. Like, I find it difficult to believe Rose is going to sit. I mean, like, he's got to find a way to play, right? Going back to Minnesota, if he doesn't, then then we could talk about quickly and guys like that. But I'm operating the assumption that Rose plays, and I'm don't think I'm going to play him. For me, it's just going to be. I like Cat, man. I don't know. It's tough to imagine saying this, that it's a tough matchup, right? But I don't know. He's going to be frighteningly low owned, I think. I don't know, man. I like it, and I do like Randall on the other side.
Yeah, I think Cat falls into a category of what the hell are they doing with this pricing? Because why is his price staying the same or lowering when he's fully engaged Cat? And by the way, had I known this before the last game, I would have certainly had a lot more of him. Actually, probably wouldn't have worked out because Sabonis still actually scored more fantasy points. But Cat's dad came to the game for the first time since this.
Well, I didn't know that.
That's a huge factor.
Oh.
This man lost 7 of his family to COVID, including his mother and his sis, and was his brother or sister. I can't remember. 2 uncles. Oh, sorry, uncle and aunt. I think it was. It was a lot of family. A grandfather. And his whole thing was he had no motivation to start the season. I actually had to see him in my season-long league. I traded him early on because I knew that I didn't trust what we get from him this year because I just thought his mind was elsewhere. He also was a very big part of the George Floyd protests and things like that. So we have Cat now at 64, 56, and 62 in his last 3 games. I don't care about the matchup versus the Knicks. I totally agree that like there's another guy you can get different with. Now the problem is, again, the pricing is still a little bit too close to the other guys, right? Like a little too close to Luka, a little too close to the other ones. But while he may not have the same ceiling, I think we can safely, say that whatever projections have him under 50 fantasy points are probably wrong. And I like Cat. So Jordan McLaughlin is supposed to be popular. Be careful with this one. Jalen Noel could get those minutes. I don't really know entirely what's going on with that. Am I missing something on their side of it?
Yeah, I have Jordan McLaughlin as my 29th best value.
What is the reason for this popping up the way that it is? I really am trying to understand it. I'm asking, like, is there somebody else out? There's nobody out. I honestly don't even understand it. It almost feels like there's just too many spread out minutes. But anyway, it's only going to be Cat and I think that, look, I've been saying it all year, and it hasn't really paid off a lot of times, but it did certainly the other day. I think they really believe in Jaden McDaniels, and the minutes are no joke. So if Tibbs is going to be playing a game to win, I'm sorry, if not Tibbs, if Minnesota's playing to win like they have been lately, we have to have interest. But what are we doing with Anthony Edwards? I know you said the thing about Beasley, but we still got another 43 out of Edwards the other night, 38 the previous night. And again, 9 for 22 wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire. The rebounds are good. Probably not the right slate, but I think he's certainly in play at the very least. And I don't think you can play Julius Randle personally. I think that with if Derrick Rose plays, if you look at Randle, I mean, he really, without Derrick Rose, the usage is just crazy. And of course,
because of his assist rate. I mean,
it's this assist rate, and they run everything through him. So, but even still at 9,700, I just can't see playing him over the other stars. I do think that if Rose is out, I don't care about what the minutes or whatever. I'll take shots on Alfred Payton at 4,100. And I'll play Emmanuel. I'll play plenty of quickly. Not in the same lineups probably, but I do like both of them. And then I don't really have I'm going to play Derrick Rose assuming he plays. And the guy I've been a little bit right with. Didn't quite get the ceiling games the last couple of times, but he's been really solid for me. And that's Nerlens Noel. Who else is going to match up with Cat on this team? And I've mentioned this over and over again. I mean, you could try Taj Gibson. That's the only way. That's your route to failure with Noel. But I still think Noel gets enough minutes here, and I think he plays them tough. The only worry is that Tibbs in one of these, Tibbs revenge games might just say, well, I'll trust my guys, and I'll play Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson, who also played for the Timberwolves for him, a bunch of minutes. So that's the only way you have to worry. But I do like both those guys.
You want to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
They just played this game the other day, the Sacramento against San Antonio, and
you had a nice call in this game. He didn't end up with a monster game, but he still had. I mean, he did have a great game for 7,100. You called DeJounte Murray a perfect environment for him.
Yeah, and
he put up 43, and by the way, could have. I think he had 30 something at halftime, so he definitely could have even been more on that. Sorry, shoot.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the same boat, like with the same 3 guys. And the one I really could have obliterated. I had Podol was like 1% in that game.
Oh wow!
So that could have been a real hero there. But I like the same guys. I like Podol. I like DeJounte Murray, and I like and then I like Mr. Variance. I like Keldon Johnson. I guess. I mean, just when that's your whisper. You know what I mean? Like you're the only one to get there to get the ceiling game out of him. So I'll let you figure out when that's going to be. It's 2 out of 20 games, with 10% of the time, and 100% of the time Bobby plays him. So we gotta wait to see when you play him next. But again, in this environment, there's definitely ceiling out there for somebody, right? So I'll throw those names out there. And there's of course DeRozan, and I don't know. I just It's never been my thing. But 7,600 is 7,600 for him, and he can certainly, I don't know, what's he going to get? 45 in a good day? Can he get 50? I guess he can get 50.
Oh
against
yeah,
Cincinnati.
yeah. He's got 60s on the record. You know,
Oh, does he?
he can get up there. But the problem is, look at how many guards they have. Just a quick look. Lonnie
Okay.
Walker's supposed to be coming back. Lonnie Walker, Vassell, Derek White, Murray, and DeRozan. These are all guys who play a lot of minutes too, and Patty Mills. So it got me a little bit nervous. I thought for some reason that San Antonio, like, no, that's right, it was 2 nights ago. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the Podol idea because we've seen this, what big men do to Sacramento.
It's fine.
And
I mean,
what's that?
it's fine. You know, there's like so many centers again. It's like,
No, I know. It's just, but that's what I was gonna say. Is like, how do we, prioritize? But he is cheap enough, like, to where I think that you don't need all that much out of him. But don't be surprised and don't complain when Pop plays him 20 minutes out of the blue.
Yeah.
That does happen. The only guy who I feel really good about in this game, and I actually think that, I know Murray took it last time, but I like DeRozan. I just think that the upside is very high. He shot the ball poorly in the last game, but still had 8 assists. His rebound numbers have been a little bit down lately. But I mean, look, he's got the opportunity for all kinds of things in this game. I'm not sure saying I want a bunch of them, but maybe 15% on the overall slate. He's the one I have the most interested in. I don't mind DeJounte Murray running it back like we did last time, but it's probably not going to be my favorite on this slate in the end. And I don't really see anybody from a price standpoint that makes a lot of sense on Sacramento's side, with the potential exception if Hassan Whiteside plays as a really, really long shot tournament play.
you don't like De'Aaron Fox?
9,300. No, I mean, since Halliburton's come back, I mean, Halliburton would be the guy I'd be most interested in. Since Halliburton's been back, I mean, they're setting things for Halliburton now, and Fox's ceilings has come down a bit. You know what I mean? He's I know he had the monster game against Cleveland and Golden State, but he was like lights out, from the outside and from everywhere on the court in that game. We haven't seen a double-digit assist game from him in a long, long time. We haven't seen a big rebounding game from him in a while. I don't think that this is the ideal situation to play him on this kind of a slate, personally. But
yeah, I don't, and not that he's whatever. I really like DeJounte Murray as a player. I think he's great, and I don't like to attack him. I don't like playing guys against him. I think he's one of those Pop guys. I think he was. Look, Pop's developing him great, but if he's on another team, he's on the All-Star game next year. It's like
right.
But not that that's bad on Pop for playing him this way, but the guy's got a lot of freaking talent.
Yeah, absolutely, and I actually feel similarly about Derek White.
All right.
Yeah, so this game, we'll move on from this one, I guess.
Okay, so Giannis gets another chance to bust, I guess. I like him. I mean, I do like him. I know that there's blowout risk, and I know he's disappointed, and I know all of it. But I mean, I just hope they don't make the mistake of making him under 10%. You know what I mean? That's just my comment. It is very tilting, by the way. When you look, it's tilting both ways. When you have him, and he's doing that thing where he just like drives out of control, and everybody can take a charge against him, and then he doesn't know what to do, and his Euro isn't working. And he takes these terrible shots from like mid-range or whatever it is, or worse, like a 3-point shot. Like it's very tilting to have him. And yet on the other hand, when you don't have him and he's getting zillions of rebounds and blocks and steals and getting in transition and doing whatever and it's tilting to not have him too. So I'm not saying he's a lock. I'm not saying he's I just think that you should always have some. And I wouldn't be particularly, I don't say worried about the blowout risk, though it does certainly exist. I think that he can get. I still think that, in spite of his last couple of games, I still think he can get 60 rather easily. And I think that he's certainly one of the top spends. I mean, it's Harden, Giannis, and Luka, and I think to prioritize Luka over him is, I don't know. I think they're very equal for me. The Lakers. I wasn't getting to much. Maybe Kuzma. That would be about it. There was somebody else on Milwaukee that I was. No, not really. That was pretty much it.
I have interest in Schroeder a little bit.
Right.
I just think that, the ball's in his hands. He's consistently been good for this price. He's got scored over 43 games in a row. It's a good pace matchup for him, which he tends to play really well in. But other than him, the weird part is if you're going to play Giannis, you kind of would love to have somebody you'd be excited about.
Would be
And
nice.
I feel less excited about Kuzma, but I'm not like, I'll have a tiny bit of Kuzma. And Giannis, yeah, the blowout risk is a thing. The not needing him to go nuts is a thing. Probably he tries to come out a little bit stronger than he has the last few games. I mean, to have him at 3 games in a row under 46 fantasy points is pretty unusual. And, I would say like after the first quarter, I think he had like half a fantasy point in the last game, and then he ended up 46 in the next 3 quarters. But the problem is he's only probably going to play 3 quarters in this one anyway. Not necessarily, but I do see the Lakers having a hard time keeping this particular matchup close. I'll still have some shares of Giannis, but I would rank him below the other guys. For me, it's interesting because I'm a little bit below on Giannis and Harden tonight, so that's kind of exciting for me because I feel like I can get different. And by the way, I like Porzingis as a pivot off of Luka, so maybe using the value and then throwing in a couple mid-tier guys with my medium spend ups in the 9K range will be the way I do this slate because. And I do think if you're playing Giannis, like I really think you want to try and think about if you're going to play any Schroeder, that's where you want to run it back. And I do think Schroeder is a strong play. I really do. I think that he's in a really good spot here. So those are my guys. Pretty much.
I would say that Milwaukee has lost 2 in a row, so I think that they're not going to cruise particularly in this game.
I know, which makes it seem like it could be over in like a quarter.
That could be also.
That's what I'm afraid of. Who did really well for me was transitioning into the next game. Patrick Williams was on that winning lineup I was talking about on FanDuel. And it wasn't like a monster score, but he was minimum cost over there. He still is basically 3,600. And he put up 33, I think, on FanDuel the other night at minimum cost. That's obviously pretty good. I think this is another night where you want Patrick Williams on FanDuel. I don't know that you want him on DraftKings. There is plenty of upside for his minutes, but most importantly in this game, what are we going to do with the question marks on Kobe White and Zach LaVine? Because I think they are extremely relevant.
So first of all, I would like to say that they said that right ankle sprain picked up during Monday's loss to Golden State. I have to explain something to say something to all the listeners and the viewers. His ankle has been hurting for like longer than that.
Like I've been talking about Sheets.
Zach LaVine.
Oh, LaVine, yeah.
Yeah, I've watched him in several games, and he's really been hurt. He's been playing through it, but he's had ankle, foot, something's been going on. He's been limping off the court several times, even though he's played through it. So I actually I'm of the belief that he sits. And with the Kobe White, I didn't really do too much work into that. Pain in his neck on Monday. I don't know. I think in either case, if LaVine sits, I think that Satoransky is a very difficult fade. I'll just put it that way. The other guy who's a pretty difficult fade is, as you mentioned, is your man, is Patrick Williams. I think he's a terrific play. He might be a play anyway, like you were saying. And I think that with LaVine out, and that's just so much used to go around. But the guy who's really, you got to really think about is freaking Vooch. I mean, he's freaking 9,100, 9,200, and with no LaVine, this could be a game, man. And it's a late game, and all of it. I think he's 100% in play. In this game, so
absolutely.
So I'm gonna try my best to wait, but one thing I will say is that if LaVine does play, I am not playing him. I'm telling you, there's something off. He is definitely hurt.
I agree with you. He doesn't look right completely. I totally agree.
And the other thing I'm not doing, by the way, so let's just say that LaVine is out, and Kobe White is in. And somehow Kobe White becomes huge. So I don't think I would go. I prefer Satoransky to Kobe White.
I don't think that would happen, but I understand well, maybe it would a little bit, but I actually think Satoransky, it'll stand out.
Yeah.
Just that he played really well without Kobe White.
And the long shot play, by the way, and this is more of a your thing. You'd have to sign off on this one. If Levine were out, is maybe like Archie Diak.
Yeah, I can't get there on.
I mean, he's played like no minutes the whole season, right?
If Levine and Kobe White are out,
Right.
maybe I could get there at minimum cost. And I'm going to point out something about this game, and you can take it for what you want, but it's a 6.5 point spread in Phoenix that feels like it should be like an 11 or 12 point spread, with the way Phoenix has been just massacring people in general. Now, Phoenix is on a back-to-back. So that, to me, my first thought is I think this would be a good opportunity for Chris Paul to rest. And I think there's a chance that maybe they think more likely those guys play, because it would probably take a combination of both for the spread to be this close. I don't think this is a naturally normal spread between these two teams. And Cameron Johnson just came back from an injury, but at 3,200, will they play him on the back-to-back? Is there anybody else who might sit on the back-to-back? There's a lot of questions we're not going to. Jay Crowder played really well last night, and will they play him on a back-to-back here? I don't know, and I get the feeling we're going to get some nonsense in this game. My natural thing would be, okay, well, we can certainly take a look at DeAndre Ayton. And I love the Vooch on the other side. It's hard to know who they're going to sit. And then obviously, if Chris Paul sits, even at 8,500, I'm absolutely going to take shots on Devin Booker here. Like, it's just, if we have no Chris Paul and potentially somebody else, which is totally on the table, I think that Devin Booker as an unowned play at 8,500, and also, look, you can play these guys without the eventual goal of playing these guys. There's going to be information between 7 Eastern and 10 Eastern tonight that's going to change things. So just try to make sure you have as much as you can. We'll obviously get more information throughout the day, but that's just the way that I'm looking at this personally. And I get the feeling there's something up here, because that's not a normal spread. And lately, I have to say, not to give myself too much credit, but I've been pretty right on these things when there's speculation on a lot of them. I mentioned it on our show yesterday that I thought that at least 2 of 3 of Kawhi, Morris, and Paul George would sit, and Morris and Paul George sat.
The other thing is, one other thing you could do, even if Paul plays, I think either way, the Cameron Payne probably isn't play.
Oh yeah, I should have mentioned that. My fault, Sheets.
And Cameron Payne is in play for blowout risk too if Levine is out.
The only problem with the Cameron Payne, though, is that on a giant 11-game slate, do you want to play a guy who's going to play 16 minutes unless Chris Paul is out?
Well, he might play 26 minutes if there's a blowout. No,
it would be hard to get to 26 to me for him, but like maybe 24, 22. Yeah, but yeah, I could see that. But if there's no Chris Paul or any of these other guys, which I'm speculating that's going to happen, then of course he's going to get some run here. And by the way, a little revenge for Cameron Payne against Chicago, who let him go.
Fair enough.
Always looking for. I actually kind of like the idea of playing the Cameron Payne angle, just because if you can get 2 guys, but if you're going to play him, try and get a couple guys in the later part of the slate so you can have a multi-way pivot. We'll figure that out a little later. Do you want to talk about FanDuel pricing real quick before we get out?
Yeah, I'm actually sort of prepared. Not with this lineup, but I actually wrote down some stuff for positions, so we could actually do that semi intelligent. All
right. Oops, this is the wrong slate I've got. So why don't you start it off with point guard, or whatever position you want to start with?
Yeah, my I got 4 guys at point guard. Nobody that we haven't talked about already. The chalky Utah guys, Clarkson and Conley, and then Ja we spoke about as well. But Lowry is really, really cheap. So I think any of those 4 will work for me.
Yeah, I mean, Clarkson's a little better over here at 5K. Obviously, the price is a little better, but it doesn't matter enough to me to where I'd rather, I think, play Maladon over him and just take the minutes. Feels weird to say that because Clarkson clearly has shown more upside, but I think Conley's the main one we're looking at here. I hate that Conley's going to be chalk on this game, because even if Mitchell was out tonight, I was going to still play him going back there. And then, it's funny because the guys who I mentioned as possibly being out are going to be popular, like Chris Paul. I'm going to play Ja. The thing that's crazy is Ja's not going to be owned on DraftKings, but will be owned on FanDuel because of that. There's, your brain sort of tweaks out a little bit when you see him at 68. Kyle Lowry at 63 is
That's disrespect.
kind of disrespectful, if you ask me. Yeah, I'm with you. And look, the last game, I hope people are game watching Kyle Lowry. Great, go ahead. If you don't think that he's got a ceiling at 6,300, if you think his ceiling, they've got a ceiling. Are you kidding me? Ceiling at 42. This guy averaged like 45 for a month this season. Get out of here. Malcolm Brogdon, again at 60, at 66. These guys are all really well priced, and it's getting me away from the top spends over here. So those top spends though are, again, Luka is just too cheap. That's all I got to say about the top guys. I don't think that there's any of these other ones who I want to get involved with.
Well, what if Levine doesn't sit? I forgot about Sato at 4,500.
Oh, Sato, yeah, it's Sato if Levine. Sato Levine, yeah. If Levine sits, okay.
If no Levine, I mean.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've got here. It's a Damian Lillard also is 9,100.
That is true.
So Luka and Lillard are the spend ups, and yeah, you can do whatever you want with the other guys. But I think that Conley, Jaw, Lowry, and Brogdon are my favorite other ones.
For me, at shooting guard, you know, Harden remains a great play. But once again, I mean, Fred VanVleet, 7,400, really nice middling guy. Ingles is going to rate as a good play. Not for me, though, I don't think. Svi is going to rate as a good play. Not for me, I don't think. You know who's showing up here for me?
Ty Jerome.
He is, but the guy I was going to bring up is a guy who I was going to ask you about, who you kind of talked about on the other slate, is DeAnthony Melton.
Interesting.
At 4,100. I was going to ask you about him, and you kind of talked about him a little bit, so I'm definitely going to include him in my pool.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a longer shot play, but I do like it, especially, you know, we don't have, if we get no Winslow again, which is I think what I've got right now, that it should open up some potential for minutes. And he's a guy who can just take over with a second unit. Also, if there is a blowout for some reason against Utah, which we know that is always possible, he should be on the court for the blowout run. Yeah, I feel similarly to you over here, but I want to include DeRozan, Halliburton. I think VanVleet is my favorite, and James Harden is right there. I don't like this position as much as I usually do, to be honest with you. It's usually lately it's been like a really, really solid position for production, and I don't love it as much tonight. But I think Halliburton, I mean, he just put up 40 in this same matchup the other day. Like, I don't mind running him back at 5,600, but the upside guys with upside of VanVleet and DeRozan, maybe even playing those two guys together and getting away from the Harden 11.5-ness, or playing Ty Jerome. Svi is going to be the more popular of all the things. I will take Ty Jerome. I probably will include Svi in my player pool because it's pretty low. It's just pretty, crazy low price. And any guard who's going to play 26 minutes to plus is going to have a chance to, pick up some steals. He's just not that. And, well, he's an okay steals guy overall. He doesn't get any blocks, obviously. Yeah, I think Ty Jerome would be just my clear preference between those two. So Harden, Fred VanVleet, Ty Jerome, my favorites, and then look out for Booker if we can find out some Phoenix news.
Yep. At small forward, again, it reminds me to remind everybody to check out the Houston news. Because if the injuries break the way that you want, Kevin Porter Jr. at 5,500 is a really good play. And then you have Bojan Bogdanovic, who you mentioned on the DraftKings slate. He's very cheap, 4,500. And then again, for those of you guys who use optimizers, you're always going, if you just run them blind, you're going to always get Justin Holiday and Dorian Finney-Smith. You just always will. And they're just not part of GPP winning strategies as far as I'm concerned. Especially on slates like this. I would much rather approve you playing Patrick Williams at 3,600.
Yes.
For example, although with Levine out, he's probably going to be pretty popular.
If Levine is out, and I don't think he will be. I don't think people will make that natural transition. I think they'll play him because he had a nice game last time, but I think it's probably going to be like 15% at most.
And I didn't have much spend up over here. That's pretty much all I had over there.
I love Jimmy Butler because
Butler, sorry.
the raw points in that for him here. I think Sadiq Bey goes really low owned again.
Mhm.
And I am going to play him in a good matchup against, again, and we know that they give up the mid range, but any team that's going to allow a shooter to shoot, I'm going to take Sadiq Bey and some shots there, and he's just playing a boatload of minutes. So I'm going to stick with him at 4,800 a little bit here. Oddly enough, I love Porter. I don't feel like there's as many like, oh, we have so many incredible options. There's like a lot of good options, but maybe it'll change later in the day, obviously. I agree with what you said about Holiday and Finney Smith. Occasionally I'll try and fit him in if I need to, but I would, like you said, I'd rather play Patrick Williams than either of them. And I think that what is going to be different for me a little bit over here is I don't have any interest in Chris Middleton on FanDuel, but I have interest in both Middleton on DraftKings, but I have interest in Middleton over here, a little bit of interest in Kuzma. And again, I don't find this position to be incredibly strong. A little bit of interest in Anunoby, and then a medium amount of interest in Mikal Bridges.
At power forward, the usual coin flipping of these guys at this price range. Isaiah Roby, Royce O'Neal, Maxi Kleber, Isaiah Stewart, Pukalevsky. I mean, all these guys, I have no idea. They all rate to be really good values or decent enough values. I just don't know what to do. Giannis, obviously, I kind of want to fade him today, if you want to know the truth. But he's obviously from raw points, he's really good. I'd much rather go middling. I'd rather play one guy who you'll like and one guy you won't. I'd rather play Siakam, and then he's just a little gross, but he's like always. He's just so cheap. I think I'm just going to play Jeremy Grant again at 6,600. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's cheap enough. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at in power forward.
Yeah, a lot of that's not my favorite thing either. Giannis obviously okay, but again, I worry about that game. Roby, if he's going to get crazy owned because he had a big game. I mean, look, we've seen that happen back and forth with these OKC frontline guys. I'm very happy to take the 0% owned Poku over Roby if I have to. I mean, it literally what might be 10 times the ownership. Jaden McDaniels sticker shock thing over on FanDuel because he's been 3,800. I mean, but certainly has shown that he has an upside. But the real, I think we're overlooking. Like I think that because he had sort of some, not so exciting games in the last little while, I still think Kleber's a good play as a value play at 4,100. And I have a little bit of interest in that game in general. I don't like it as much as normal. Roby does make the most sense at first look, but like if he's going to be 1,000,000% on, which I think he's going to be, I think you're right. Maybe, Jeremy Grant. But what about one other guy who's been a little bit off lately, but maybe it's reaching with Harrison Barnes. I don't love this position. It actually makes me kind of want to play Julius Randle a little bit over here rather than over there. But again, I'd rather play. Oh, I didn't see Derrick Rose's price over here, by the way.
I didn't even notice.
Let me see, 5,500. So he's a little more expensive, but I still don't mind him if he does play. Let me just put him on my list so I don't forget about him. And then let's see, Sabonis, Siakam, Crowder. Yeah, there's not. I mean, I don't feel incredibly enthused about this position, or maybe where I play Royce O'Neal or something like it. Jeremy Grant and Roby seem like the most logical guys. Oh, and I'll play Porzingis at 85. I guess that's one differentiating play that I like.
Yeah, the Roby thing is a little seems a little fishy. Oh, here's another guy that you made money on recently. Another guy who might benefit from Levine being out just from usage dispersing is Thaddeus Young.
Yeah, I can't quite get there on this slate.
And the other guy I wanted to mention is the guy you mentioned on DraftKings also is Brandon Clark.
Yeah, a little bit like this is better general FanDuel player, but this price at 54 versus 45 kind of takes me a little bit less. It makes me a little less interested, especially with the minutes sort of in flux. Unless they really do want to play him at the 3 or 4, and they tend to be using him as a small ball 5. So I have Clark on my list, but I don't have like a ton of interest yet, but I might change my mind on that one.
While I'm thinking about it, I got one other guy that we forgot to mention on DraftKings. Again, if Levine is out, don't we have to think about marketing also?
Yes. And by the way, a guy who busted everybody the other night. Wow, that actually is why, it is disturbing a little bit with this new lineup that they don't play him any minutes. um, and I don't have a great explanation of why they don't play him any minutes, or they haven't so far. One was a blowout. The other wasn't exactly a blowout, but I guess that's a good point. Yeah, Markkanen is a guy who will at some point do something for that. Yeah, let's put him on the list.
So this is not plagiarism, what I'm about to say, because I honestly don't remember where I heard it. So if I'm repeating some other content provider's material with this, it's not intentional, and I'd like to give you credit for it. I just forgot where, but I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was like 3 games ago, so that's why I probably forgot where it came from. And they were analyzing the Utah game. I forgot who they were playing, and they were worried about like blowout risk. And they commented, and there was going to be some follow-up research done that actually Utah they play their guys more than people might think.
Oh, they
right?
really do. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So was it? Yeah, in blowouts. So I wouldn't be as worried about. And the reason why I bring it up is I think at center, I think I really want to play. I was thinking about Robert Williams, thinking about Moses, but I think I'd rather play just Rudy Gobert. I think that's kind of what I want to do. Yeah, and I guess that's the end of the analysis.
Yeah, it's if Christian Wood plays, like I'll take some shots there.
Or your dude, what about your long shot over here? 4,900 for Chris Boucher, huh?
Yeah, but you know what I'm gonna do is I know what I'm gonna do. I know what they need right now. I have no idea how many minutes they're gonna be willing to run him, but I'm probably gonna take some shots with Drummond.
Yeah, I thought of that. What is he over 6,000 or something?
5,200.
Oh, 5,200.
And
he's going to get 50.
Proposing and looking like he's going to smash. Like even in those minutes, they've got him at like, what is he at? 5.5 to 6x. Like, oh my God.
He's going to get 50, right?
Yeah, it just feels like it. I agree though with your overall thing that Gobert, Williams, and Brown. I'm gonna just again side with Brown, but I will have some Williams. Maybe I'm just got the UCLA in me right now because they just made the Final Four. But I do think Moses Brown, after a disappointing performance, that by the way he still played minutes. He played pretty much as like I think that's not like his floor game, but I think it's pretty close to it. And he still put up 28 fantasy points. Not that that's exciting or anything, just that look at his other games and you'll get excited. This guy's been in the mid 40s, low 50s. So I can get behind the Moses Brown thing.
So if Drummond starts,
I think he will start if he plays.
I mean, I honestly don't even know what his price was.
I don't think he will start. I don't know what they'll do. Like overall, he's not going to be a starter at the end of the year. He's certainly not going to be a closer for the Lakers at the end of the year if everybody's healthy. But he's supposed to be the stopgap help right now. Like, maybe you start. I mean, you could start him alongside Gasol. That would be kind of weird in this kind of a matchup. But
I would like to say, by the way, that I think that he should be closing. I think that no,
that's crazy. It would be the worst idea. It's horrible.
He should be the worst. I think that Davis should be more of a 3/4. So
what you're saying goes against every statistical thing in history, including the Lakers title last year, which even though they had JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, who were actually playing extremely well, they closed with Davis every single game. And LeBron, and by the way, LeBron's best usage is at the 4. And also on top of that, Andre Drummond this is not an exaggeration, the worst free throw shooter in the history of basketball for any player that's ever made an All-Star game. He's a 46% free throw shooter. You cannot play him down the stretch. When your team is playing for a title, you can play him here, but you cannot play him down the stretch because he doesn't do enough for you. He's on record saying, Sheets, that he doesn't like to roll. Now the Lakers and every good team in the NBA runs more screen and roll than like anybody. He doesn't want to roll. He wants to post up and run offense through him. That will happen right now when the Lakers have nobody. There's no way that happens once either of LeBron or AD are back. I have a strong take on that one. Sorry, man. That's just my personal thoughts. I don't like him as a closer. I don't. But I think we covered pretty much everything, and we're gonna have to get to some golf and baseball. So we'll get out of here, guys. Sheets, anything else that we missed before I get out?
Nope. Just fire it up and send me the next one.
All right, guys. Let's crush tonight. Good luck to everybody.